Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and this is going to be about Sharp Objects, episode 6. It's called Cherry, so we're going to dive into this. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. So this was definitely a very tense episode again. I think what this show is doing more than anything that's impressing me is the social anxiety that keeps kind of cropping up, specifically for Camille in the situations that she's in. Obviously, we open with her waking up next to Detective Willis, and she's kind of awkward about it. He tries to make some small talk. He tries to say, "Hey, let's have some coffee. Let's see each other again." And she doesn't like have a genuine thing she's doing that night. She's not making up the fact that she reluctantly agreed to go to this girls' night thing at one of her quote unquote old friends' houses, but she definitely feels distant, and that kind of prompts him to maybe go digging a little bit, arguably abusing his power a little bit, but at the same time he is kind of investigating the family for various reasons. I think he has enough reason at this point to be suspicious of the family, but so she goes off, and she does have one kind of interview with John Keene's girlfriend again, which actually it kind of follows like a really weird moment actually with John and Amma. Amma's at the same house and she's like by the pool, and she's kind of starting to flirt with them and kind of implying, hey, maybe we should do something, like a girlfriend's not here. And she says, actually, I've got the dialogue in front of me here. I specifically got this. I thought it was interesting. She says, who do I remind you of? And he says, a bad little girl who thinks she's cuter than she is. And then she says, then you should stop watching me. You know Ashley gets how Ashley gets when she's jealous. And John says, I like to keep an eye on you, Amma. Just know I've always got my eye on you. And then he says, it'll be your day soon. Which is very, like, on the nose kind of implications that, like, if they want to make us think that he might be the killer. I don't think that's actually what he means here. Partly because it's just too obvious, but partly because I feel like he suspects her of something, or he's, something to that effect, or that she's in some way responsible for who's being picked, or whatever. And I was thinking about this since last week. I was thinking that, despite the fact that we have the teeth, the pulling the teeth is too difficult, requires more strength than typically a woman would have. I do think thematically for the show that a woman is going to be involved. If not the sole killer, then a woman is definitely going to be involved in the murders. I think, given that the one of the core themes of the show has been the anger that's repressed by women that's hidden, I feel like it makes a lot of sense to have a woman be involved in the killings in some way. I mean, Amma, is it her? Is it Adora? I mean, I don't know. They both have a lot of pent up frustration in different ways. So she has a short scene with Ashley, and she kind of prods. She almost leaves because Ashley's just giving her, fluff to put in her article. Because Ashley's like determined to be in the newspaper, and then later on when she finds out she's not going to be in the newspaper, she just says, "Well, no one cares. No one reads the newspapers anyway." Again, it's very dismissive. It's kind of hiding her pain and just sort of passing the bucket, as it were. But so I'm rushing through this part because ultimately this is not the interesting stuff in the episode for to a large extent. I do want to mention a scene though. We can't gloss over the scene back at the house, the main house, with Camille's eating some pie at breakfast after she's arrived there. And Adora kind of like stares at her as if she knows something's changed, and Camille asks, what was it? And she's like, you tell me. But we get like a little flashback after this. Again, it's very cold as it always has been with Adora, but we get a little flashback after this of the first day that Camille was in her cheerleading uniform, and her little sister was like, oh, you look pretty. And Adora, instead of giving her a compliment, just says, oh, you look like a ripe cherry or something to that effect. But obviously the word cherry is important. It's the title of the episode. And it may even be the first thing she ever carved into herself. It may not be. I mean, it's definitely one of the early things. They could give us more of a direct story about the first one later, but it seems like this might have been the first one, because she says that. It's very demeaning, and then later on we get quick glimpses of her on the cheerleading squad in the field, and she ends up with a cramp, and she's it turns out she's not actually sore, she's just bleeding from her wound where she's written the word. And the one who's kind of the friendliest of the group, we see her in present day later on, like, admit that she saw the word. She knew it wasn't a period. She knew it wasn't anything like that. She knew it was the word was carved into her leg. and she was nicer to her in part because of that, not entirely because of that, because because Camille's like, no, we were bitches in high school, like, we were awful to you, and she's like, yeah, but you were better than them, you were the best, and she's like, well, that's not saying much. But again, it's this idea of the darkness that everyone kind of overlooks and everyone just kind of happily ignores. It's the idea of presenting the nice front, even though that behind that front everyone's just in pain and depressed, and hiding all of these really deep-rooted problems that are kind of self-destructing them. And maybe that's why everyone in this town is so messed up, because they have to hide everything all the time. But the real highlights, of course, beyond the party itself, where Camille goes to the house and spends time with all these old friends, again, using that term loosely, and we hear one just burst down into tears because her husband doesn't want any more kids. And I have to admit, I did a bit of a spit take when she says, but, he says 4's enough. I'm like, four, four's plenty. I mean, call me crazy. I feel like I think obviously having kids is a big dispute between couples. Like, you want them, you don't want them, and obviously if you're at an early point in a relationship and you have that conversation where one of you wants kids and one doesn't, then you have to address that, because that's a big life choice that you're conflicting on. I feel like, though, after you've been married and you've had 4 children, which is already more than an average amount, I'd say. I think 2 to 3 is the more normal kind of amount, right? Not that 4's not absurdly big, but it's it's healthy. It's a healthy amount of kids. I feel like at that point, getting upset that your partner doesn't want more kids feels a bit extreme to me. I don't know. You've got 4 kids. So, and I'm an only child. The thought of having a second kid to me already feels extreme. But I don't know. That just really made me laugh. It was kind of like, first world problems. I guess is what I'm getting at. It really made me laugh. But then Camille's outside. She's talking with her friend, and then they all come outside, and it's almost like, oh, Camille's away, and she's away from the group, and she's away from us as criticizing her. So let's go and throw more things on the pile. And they come over and they get, and this feels like a very realistic conversation that happens here, depressingly so, is that Camille is kind of chastised and told that she doesn't understand or can't sympathise with the girls who have been killed because she's not a mother, because she doesn't, as they put it, we didn't know how to truly love. Like, there's part of her heart that just wasn't unlocked until we had kids, making her feel like less of a woman because she's not had children. And again, it's this social anxiety, this social requirement, these expectations, and then the failure to meet them. And I think if one thing this show's taught me is that everyone is kind of, society as a whole is kind of responsible for making everyone miserable. Everyone adheres to these rules and systems and these appearances that they're supposed to, keep up. Even Ashley, like, she wants to go to the party because I'm not going to be a social outcast later on. But then, within 10 minutes, like, they end up leaving in a giant row, and she's swearing at them because of what they're saying at her and about a boyfriend. So, like, it's this idea that everyone is, like, obsessed with being what they're supposed to be, when all that's doing is making them miserable and making them feel terrible when they can't achieve that goal that they've set out for themselves, even though it's not right for them. And again, it's that bottled up rage, which is, in this show specifically, it does veer more towards the women, but certainly the men are, there's hints of it there as well. Actually, can we just talk about how Adora is making, I've forgotten his name, the husband, hold on, Alan. Adora's making Alan sleep on a sofa bed or a pull-out, which, I mean, that could just be since they had that disagreement a couple of episodes ago, but part of me feels like this was just the status quo, and maybe has been for a while. I was kind of getting that feeling. It was actually kind of weird how it cut to him after the opening scene with Camille waking up with Willis, because it came to him waking up, and it kind of like almost contrasted him, and he had like records, like old vinyl covers, like spread out of like old like 60s and 50s pinup girls, and I don't know, I think the show, it felt like it was making a dramatic point here about how lonely he is, or how, despite the fact that during the day he's sitting with Adora and he's all done up, he's got his sweater around his neck, and he's sitting with the beverage, and he's with her, and he's playing the role during the day. Again, there's this hidden sadness, which is what I mean when even the men seem to be affected by it. And if he does turn out to be something related to the killings, you know, again, everyone seems to have this pent-up hidden rage. Almost anyone would be believable at this point, except from Camille, because she wasn't in the town. But if she was in the town, she would be equally a suspect. Outside of the fact that she's clearly trying to investigate it. But, you know, what do we know? What do we know? What does the audience? But yeah, so that was another soul-crushing scene where I felt really uncomfortable because of where it was going. Like, they were going out of their way to be awful people, and they're still awful people. They've not grown up since high school. The expectations and the clique that they're in has evolved a little bit, but ultimately it's still the same bullshit. They're still making other people feel bad for not being what they are. They're still doing the same things. But I think the big thing of the episode though is Amma and Camille and going to this party and everything that kind of comes out of that, and the tension that was felt abundantly throughout the entire thing. From the moment that Amma comes up to the store, because, you know, Camille gets dropped off at the store by her friend. She didn't take her car. In fact, one of the gags in this, I say gag because I laughed at it, is when Camille drives back in the morning and lands on the front lawn. Adora says even the lawn's not safe from her. And then there's a little bickering thing where Alan's like, oh, should I ask her to move it? It's like, oh, don't cause a scene. And then he tries to bring it up anyway after she starts arguing with Camille. And it's this idea that he's trying to again play the role that Adora's set for him. And later on, obviously, he argues with Camille about how she's being. Like, oh, we have to, because Adora says, oh, tell her how you feel about it. Because they have a conversation. It's after she's walked in from the car. Adora says she's outstaying her welcome, and Alan's like, "Oh, you've been more than understanding. You've been more than you've done your best." And she's like, "Thank you. Why don't you tell her how we feel or how you feel?" And the look in his face cracked me up. It was like, because it was clearly how she was feeling, but she's like, "No, how about you tell her how you feel? You handle this." And later on, he tries to, and she's leaving to go out with her friends or to the friend's house. He tries to have a conversation with her about it, and says, oh, you have to stop, bringing up these dead girls to your mother, because they have this confrontation, of course, because of the evidence. I'm dashing around all over the place. I keep trying to get to the party because that's the exciting part. But there was the tricycle, or the little bike. I think it was a tricycle. Was it a tricycle or a bike? I think it was a tricycle. That was found in the muddy swamp next to the plant that Adora owns, her company, and it turns out to be Nash's daughter's bike, because he's not sure at first because it's covered in mud, and he's like, would you recognise the seat? And it's like, oh yeah, it's white with stars. And sure enough, he wipes it, and he breaks down and he tears. And later on, Camille confronts her mother and says, hey, this happened, why didn't I find out about this? And he's like, well, you found out from other places. You're not interviewing me, It's like, yeah, I guess I'm interviewing you. And that's kind of the confrontation that leads to the conversation. And then, of course, later Bill brings this up, says, you can't keep bringing this up. You keep bringing up these dead girls with someone who's lost a child. Like, stop doing this. And he makes all these accusations, and it feels very filtered through. It feels like it's all come from Adora, and he's just kind of like passing it on through because he's supposed to an extent. But he brings up this interesting point where Camille says something, and he says, oh, that sounds just like your grandmother. Her grandmother, he says, oh, was quite cruel to Adora. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, so clearly there's this fear of becoming your parent, right? That Camille is somehow become. I mean, we don't know if the grandmother was worse. We have no way of knowing that. We've never seen her. We're getting this very second-hand information, if anything, third-hand information. But we hear that she used to pinch her in the night, and she claimed that it was because she wanted to make sure she was safe and she was fine. But he talks about it being cruel, and he talks about how she was treated and how it was awful. And it's kind of, I thought it was interesting to bring that up. It was interesting to say, hey, there's a reason why she might be this way. That this comes from her mother. Without accepting, of course, the irony here being that he does not accept that the reason why Camille's the way she is because of Adora. Like, there's no blame being accepted here at all. It's all, oh, why are you this way, Camille? Why are you this way? Never once thinks. And as we even see in this episode from the flashback with the cherry comment, which led to potentially the first cut, if you will, like, really extreme. Really definitely rooted in a relationship with her mother that helped cause all this stuff. And I think helping that is probably the fact that Amma's so screwed up, right? Like, Amma is not a healthy person. The first time we see her, she jokes about the cut she got from being out in the woods last episode. Like, oh, I could almost make a C out of this for Camille. And of course, Camille's like, no, don't joke about it. That's not funny. You don't do that. But yeah, so Amma's big thing this episode, Amma and Camille, after Camille is dropped off at the store, and Amma shows up on her rollerblades with her friends, and is the moment she hits the grating outside the window and sort of like bangs on it to like say, hey, I'm here, like immediately the anxiety, immediately the slow dread in the pit of my stomach was beginning to build. And I think part of the reason why it does is because Amma makes me uneasy. Amma is a very hard to predict character where she feels like she can be very dangerous in terms of what she might provoke out of Camille, in terms of what situation she might land Camille in. So when she basically drags Camille into the car with her friends and two guy friends, and it's like, oh dear, what's happening? She's like, oh, we'll drop you off on the way to your party. And then, you know, in the car, like, Camille's just sitting there. There's the very awkward conversation with the guy, the teenage guy, who's like, oh, you're like my mum's age but hot. And it's like, oh, that can't be. Like, what age is your mum? Like 33, which, you know, she had a kid young. If she's got a teenager this age at 33, then she was a teen mother, unless my math is not what it used to be. But it's very awkward, and she sort of accepts it and just kind of moves things on again, try to like play the adult. And then we're at a point where Amma's like, hey, here, have some Oxy. And she's like, no, of course not. I'm not going to have some Oxy with my kid sister. Like, no, that's not happening. But then she's like, please, please. And then everyone starts chanting, and the music kind of like drones out a little bit, and we really go like harsh focus. And it's like, oh god, Camille, don't do this. Like, that's it. And you know, so I'm feeling nervous about this, and it cuts away before it happens. You don't get to see if she takes it or not until later, and it, you know, turns out she did take it. And this is kind of this thing, this relationship between Camille and Amma, which is kind of, in many ways, is kind of the core of the show, is her dealing with the fact that she's been with you know, her sister who passed away, and then Alice in rehab, which of course Willis finds out about. He goes and checks that out, finds out that, you know, that Alice committed suicide. He tries to talk to Jackie about it, trying to, and Jackie didn't even know about that part, but he's trying to find out exactly what was going on. So he knows she was self-harming at the very least. And then just one minor point on his side of things. The chief thinks that they've caught the killer. The chief thinks they've caught the killer because one of the workers fingered a Mexican, which is, you know, what he was really hoping for. Remember way back when he was first theorizing, he's like, no, it'll be an outsider, it'll be some Mexican, you know, outsider who's just traveling through or something like that. Feels a bit too easy, of course. And of course Willis is like, no, I want a background check on every single person who's worked at this plant in the last 5 years. Although Camille points out in one scene that, you know, it feels a bit conveniently, it feels like someone's trying to frame someone by putting it here. It's just too obvious a placement. If you worked here, why would you'd have to be a complete moron to get rid of some of the evidence where you work, right? That's just crazy talk. But they get to the party, and she's like, oh, just come in, and Camille, like, and honestly, I didn't even really need the flashback to tell me she'd taken the Oxy, because the way she's kind of sitting there in a daze kind of told me right there and then. But she insists on her coming to the party. Just 5 minutes, then we'll take you home, I promise. And I didn't believe her for a word. I didn't believe a word of it. But she grabs her into the house, and she comes in, and she is the middle-aged woman in a teenage party, and everything is going on around her. And again, I'm just worried. I'm worried about what Amma's going to do here. Like, is Amma going to like expose like her arm? Is she going to like tell everyone about her sister and what she does? And she does that a little bit later on. She tells everyone, oh, she lost a little sister and she's not really dealt with it. And again, she's getting very personal in a way that feels uncomfortable. But she, you know, the fact that Camille takes the Oxy and then goes up to the room, and then we have the scene where Amma plays this game where they're passing the ecstasy around by kissing each other, and then she takes it back and then goes up to kiss Camille, and it gets, you know, it's a very like intimate, close, and like, and I was wondering where it was going at this point. I really was, because there's lots of other little moments in this one where Willis is questioning about the death of the little sister. It's like, hey, was there ever an autopsy? What was it ruled? And apparently Adora just refused to let anyone cut into her body. Like, no, you're not touching my baby. Like, no. She refused to believe. And I'm like, what's the show hitting at here? Are we hitting at that Camille might have had, in some roundabout way, if not directly, something to do with her little sister's death? Is there actual guilt? Like, Did she accidentally give her something? You know, because we keep talking about how the sister, or the Alice at the rehab was, you know, drank poison. Like, did that kind of because the way he said that, the way Willis said that, made me think, like, is that kind of what made you know, our little sister sick? You know, Marlon, like, or Marianne rather. Is that what made her sick? I don't know, like, and is that suspicious? Like, is he questioning, like, did she have something to do with it, either intentionally or unintentionally? And, you know, would it be that much of a shock in a lot of ways, because we saw how much our mother seemed to, you know, prefer Marianne, so why not? Like, obviously why not? There's lots of reasons why not, but, like, you know, it doesn't take a big leap to get to the point where she might do something stupid as a kid against her little sister. Is there guilt about that? I mean, I could be wrong. I don't necessarily think it is, because throughout the show so far, there's been a loving relationship with, and if any, but it would also explain why she's scared to get close to Alice, why she's scared to get close to Amma, and then of course there's the small touch here of, like, you know, the kiss itself feels very uncomfortable because they're sisters, and it makes me wonder, like, is this hinting at any other themes? Like, was there some sort of weird relationship with her sister as a kid that we've not seen yet? Was there a slightly ancestral side to it? I don't know. But it's poking at all these little things, and I mean, I could just be jumping at the deep end here. It may not actually mean any of this stuff. It could just be, again, Amma's being provocative. Amma wants to push the boundaries, but you know, it stuck out. It's really stuck out. And then, you know, she's had oxy. She's on ecstasy at this point, and she tries to leave, and Amma actually takes her, and they go rollerblading. So we get a scene where Amma and Camille are rollerblading at night, whilst they're both high off their nut, down the streets of the town. And at one point, the chief even sees them go by. Very angelic the way it cuts from the music to the scene of them rollerblading. And they're going down the street. And I'm pretty sure actually the song they were listening to, it's a popular song, I forgot what it was. I'm pretty sure we heard Camille listen to that in the first episode. I could be misremembering that though. Do fill me in. But you know, they're rollerblading down the street, and all I could feel like is that Camille, ever since the start of the show, has been resisting this temptation, but she's finally kind of becoming who she was in high school. Like, this is kind of her. She's kind of there again. She's rollerblading. She's high. She's with her little sister. Like, she's kind of succumbed to the environment, the surroundings of her upbringing, and she was trying to resist as best she could the whole time, but she finally gave in. And it's a character flaw that she gave in, because most reasonable adults wouldn't give in to any of the offers that are made by Amma in this episode, especially when it's your little sister, right? But she does, and it feels like she's kind of went off the deep end, like, this is dangerous. And they end up getting home, and of course there's those creepy shots of Adora looking up the stairs and looking in the room and seeing, like, is this what she was concerned about? Is this what she was worried about the entire time? Was this relationship forming between them? And, you know, did she see, I mean, does Adora blame Camille at the very least for her sister's death? Very, very possible. But of course, the creepy final moment of the episode is that her, you know, Marianne, the little ghost Marianne, appears to Camille. Again, she's very high at this point, but she sees her in the mirror saying that this place is dangerous for you. And no, obviously, I don't think there's literally a ghost here. I think this is just in her head. But I think, I believe there was a scene in the first episode when there were kids talking about warnings from ghosts. So this feels like it thematically ties back in. And then this one, I think the ghost is right, for lack of a better term. I think this place is dangerous, not because the killer might get her, not in that sense. It's dangerous because of what it can bring out in her, because of what it can do to her, because it's reopening old wounds. It's making her revert to a way she was when she was younger. And even though she doesn't want to do it, even though she doesn't really, you know, she's fallen into all these traps because of her surroundings. And it's worth mentioning that Amma wants to move to St. Louis with her. She wants to leave. She's like, hey, I'll live with you. I'll get a job after school, and I can leave this shitty town. And the idea that her sister's gone down a similar path, maybe not to self-harming specifically, but she's definitely on a destructive path. The amount of drugs that she's doing on a regular basis, she is not a healthy person, and it feels like she's spiraling the same way that Camille was. Camille is kind of falling back into who she was when she was younger, kind of in the same way that her friends, or, you know, again, lack of a better term, her fake friends, The way that they're all kind of the same, even though now they're mothers, now they've got houses, and now they're insulting people about different things, but they're still essentially the same people. She's kind of still the same person. And maybe that's kind of part of the point of the show, is can we evolve beyond our past selves when we know our past selves were imperfect, to say. I mean, everyone's imperfect, but you know what I mean. Like, can we improve upon versions of ourselves that we would like to improve upon, that we know we have to improve upon? And I think that's interesting. As far as the episode's quality as a whole, like, it's very good, especially the back half. I don't think it was overall as tight as the last one. I think episode 5 was probably still the best one of the show so far. I think this one has a lot of setup in the first half before it gets to the real meat. But once it gets to all that stuff with the party and Amma, it is edge of your seat. But it's edge of your seat in a very different way, where you're like, oh no, Camille, don't do this, and then she does it. It's social tension. It's not tension of a serial killer grabbing someone. It's tension of she's going to make a huge mistake here, and I'm going to feel horrible about it. And what's Amma going to do as well is another big factor there. And I do think that warning at the end is, no, this place is dangerous for you. In fact, one scene that I've not talked about yet, and it would be a giant mistake not to mention it, is again. The husband who spoke to her last episode, the one who was one of the boys in the forest for the gang rape flashback, he tries to talk to her again, and in the house, and he kind of corners her as well. Like, I thought this was because he ultimately tries to apologize here, and I couldn't help but feel like, hey, if you're going to try and apologize to someone for sexual assault later, I feel like backing them into a corner where they feel like they can't get out is maybe not the best mood to set for said apology. I mean, I don't know, it's just my first thought on the subject. But he tries to apologize, and he says he's felt awful about that day ever since, which may be genuine. This is the hard thing. It's hard to tell from this scene. It feels a little bit intimidating at the end when she leaves, and she kind of like, I've forgotten about that day, leave it. And she cracks some jokes like, oh, you can get up if I remember. You apologizing for that? And she cracks some jokes. And I think from Camille's perspective, she doesn't want to feel like she was a victim. And we saw that before with Willis, when he says, "Oh, that's statutory rape," and she says, "No, that was consent." And she defends it, and I think it's because she doesn't want to be seen as a victim. She wants to feel like she's stronger than that. And she kind of tries to just basically get out of the conversation as quickly as possible. And I get that it's uncomfortable. Even if she didn't feel that way, I think it's an uncomfortable conversation to have no matter what. Although perhaps a necessary one, should she feel comfortable enough to have that conversation. But he kind of backs her into a corner. And again, it feels a little bit selfish because I mean, not even a little bit, it's very selfish, but he wants to try and relieve his own guilt. So he wants to try and feel that he's given the apology, and hopes that she accepts, so he can feel better about himself. And so it is selfish, but it may be from a genuine place, but it's hard to tell. The look at the end though, when she leaves, when she kind of like doesn't give him the easy exit or the easy apology, does kind of feel like another red herring where he might be the killer. Like, I don't know, maybe. Like, has he been killing teenagers now because he has like all these weird pent up memories of his actions as a teenager? I don't know. Again, it feels a little bit on the nose, but at the same time, nothing would surprise me at this point. Everyone's got baggage in this show. Everyone does. But yeah, again, what really stuck out to me about that scene was the way she tried to sort of, write it off as if it's nothing, which in turn wasn't really like giving him the closure he wanted either. But yeah, so again, very selfish on his part the way he does it. But obviously, I'm not saying it's always selfish to try and apologize for something. If you've grown as a person, you should try and like make amends. But I think in a case like this, where the other person could feel threatened, especially in this like really narrow hallway where you've closed them in, I think you open the branch to suggest that you want to have a conversation and apologize for it, and let you take the next step, I guess, is what I'm saying. You make that person feel as comfortable as possible, and instead she defensively makes it sound like it's not a big deal because she wants to feel stronger than that. She doesn't want to feel like a victim, and I think that's getting to the root of the problem of the characters in this show, is they tend to disregard their problems and don't admit what's wrong and what's, until it gets to the point where she is self-harming, and You know, that now it's just the problem is she's self-harming. It's saying, you know, Adora's reaction to that is, no, you're just a messed up kid. This is all out of spite, rather than actually trying to think of, why is my daughter doing this? Why, you know, even if it wasn't her fault, okay, what's driving her to this? Let's try and help her. That never seemed to be the attitude from Adora, and this is where it's led. And Emma's not exactly looking too healthy either. So we leave this episode in a very kind of down and dark place, where Camille's definitely at our lowest and darkest in terms of giving into to what's around her and giving into her vices in who she once was. So I'm really curious to see where this leads next episode, but by all means let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel and everything we do here and keep the reviews coming, head over to patreon.com/mailoffuzztv, and you can do that over there, even for $1 a month. You get some bonuses and some other stuff at the higher tiers. If you can't do that, don't feel too bad. You can, of course, just, you know, watch the ads on YouTube, turn off your ad block. That does help, it really does. But otherwise, that's us, guys. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys, and I'll see you next time.